The rain came without warning. Maya stood at my apartment door soaking wet, her dark hair plastered against her face, mascara running in delicate streams down her cheeks. She looked like a watercolor painting left out in the rain, beautiful and dissolving all at once. "The subway flooded," she said, her voice barely audible over the thunder. "I couldn't get home." "I'm so sorry, Rachel. I didn't know where else to go." We'd been friends since college. 5 years of late-night study sessions and Sunday brunches, of shared secrets and borrowed clothes. But something had shifted between us lately, glances that lasted too long, touches that lingered, conversations that died mid-sentence when our eyes met. I stepped back, pulling the door wider. "Get in here before you catch pneumonia." Maya crossed the threshold, and I felt the air in my small studio apartment change, becoming charged with something I couldn't name. Or maybe I could name it. Maybe I'd been naming it silently for months now, in the quiet hours before sleep, when honesty came easier. "I only have one towel clean," I said, grabbing it from the bathroom. "And you're drenched." She accepted it gratefully, but her hands were shaking. Not from cold, the August night was warm despite the rain. I recognized that tremor. I'd felt it in my own hands whenever she was near. "You should get out of those clothes," I said, then felt heat rise to my face. "I mean, I can lend you something dry." A smile played at the corner of Maya's lips, even through her shivering. "I know what you meant." I turned away, rifling through my dresser with unnecessary force. My oversized college t-shirt, soft cotton shorts, safe, comfortable, completely non-threatening clothes that wouldn't make this moment feel like what it was starting to feel like. When I turned back, Maya had already peeled off her soaked cardigan. Her white blouse underneath had gone transparent, revealing the black lace of her bra, the curve of her shoulders, the small constellation of freckles I'd memorized without meaning to. "Bathrooms there?" I managed. Thrusting the clothes toward her, she took them, her fingers brushing mine. The contact lasted half a second, but seemed to echo in the space between us. "Thank you," she said softly, "for letting me stay." After she disappeared into the bathroom, I pressed my palms against my face and tried to breathe normally. This was fine. This was just a friend staying over during a storm. This was not the moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and dreaming about for the past 6 months. I busied myself making tea, setting out extra blankets, doing anything to avoid thinking about Maya in my bathroom, wearing my clothes, standing in the space where I stood every morning when she emerged. Her hair toweled wide and curling at the ends, my t-shirt hanging loose on her smaller frame. I nearly dropped the mug I was holding. "Is that my shirt from the Brooklyn Marathon?" she asked, a genuine smile breaking across her face for the first time that night. I looked down at the faded purple fabric. "Oh God, is it? You left it here after that weekend. We painted your entire apartment at 2 in the morning because you said the white walls were making you depressed," she finished. I remember, we'd been so young then, just out of college, everything ahead of us shining and possible. Maya had just come out to her family. I was still figuring out who I was, still calling the feeling I had for her friendship because that word felt safer. "You never asked for it back," I said. "I know." She took the tea I offered her, our fingers brushing again. This time neither of us pulled away quickly. "I liked thinking about you wearing it." The confession hung in the air between us, fragile as spider silk outside. The storm intensified. Lightning illuminated my apartment in stark flashes, the futon that doubled as my bed, the small kitchen table where we'd shared countless meals, the window seat where Maya used to curl up with her books while I worked on my laptop. "I should take the futon," Maya said. "You take your bed." "Maya, this is the bed. Futon by night, couch by day. Studio, apartment, living." She laughed, but it sounded nervous. "Right? I forgot." "We've shared a bed before," I said, trying to sound casual. "That trip to Montreal, the Airbnb with the queen bed that turned out to be a double. That was different." "How?" Maya set down her tea, wrapping her arms around herself, despite the warmth of the apartment. When she looked at me, her brown eyes were darker than usual, full of something that made my heart stutter. "Because I wasn't in love with you yet." The words landed like a physical thing between us. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at her as thunder shook the windows. Yet, I finally whispered, "I'm in love with you now, Rachel." Her voice was steady despite the trembling of her hands. "I have been for months. Maybe longer. Maybe since that morning in Montreal when I woke up and you were still asleep and the light was coming through the curtains. And I thought, this is what I want. This exact thing. Every morning. With you, I must have taken a step toward her, though I didn't remember deciding to move. Why didn't you say anything? Because you're my best friend. Because I was terrified of losing you. Because every time I tried to find the words, I saw our entire friendship hanging in the balance, and her voice cracked. I couldn't risk it, Maya. And I know this is the worst timing," she continued, words tumbling out faster now. "I show up at your door like a drowned cat, and instead of just being grateful for shelter, I'm standing here in your clothes, in your apartment, telling you that I dream about kissing you, that I have kissed you in my head 1,000 times. That sometimes when you laugh at something I've said, I want to close the distance between us and kissed her. Her lips tasted like chamomile tea and rain, and something indefinable that was just Maya. For a second, she went completely still and I thought I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then her hands came up to my face, cradling it with a tenderness that made my chest ache, and she kissed me back. It wasn't like the kisses I'd imagined during all those sleepless nights. It was better and stranger and more real, slightly awkward as we figured out angles. As her glasses bumped my forehead, as we both smiled against each other's lips and had to pause to laugh. I've wanted to do that for so long. I breathed when we finally pulled apart. My forehead resting against hers. How long? Remember sophomore year? That party where you wore that red dress? Maya pulled back to look at me, her eyes wide. That was 5 years ago. I know. Rachel, I wore that dress for you. I spent 3 hours getting ready because I knew you'd be there. And I wanted. She stopped, laughing in disbelief. We're idiots. Complete idiots, I agreed, pulling her close again. We kissed slower this time. Learning each other, making up for years of wanting and not saying. Her hands found the hem of my shirt, fingers ghosting against my skin, and I felt like I might dissolve from the sweetness of it. Wait, Maya said, pulling back slightly. I need to know this is real. That tomorrow morning you won't wake up and regret this. Regret me. I took her face in my hands, making sure she could see the truth in my eyes. Maya Patel, I have been in love with you since you told off that professor who said women didn't belong in computer science. I have been in love with you through every terrible date you told me about. Every breakup I helped you through. Every moment I had to pretend I was happy you'd found someone else. This is the opposite of regret. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Why didn't we do this sooner? Fear, timing, stupidity. I kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. Does it matter? No, she whispered. It doesn't matter at all. We stayed up all night talking in whispers, even though there was no one to disturb. We lay facing each other on my futon, so close our noses almost touched. Hands intertwined between us. Maya told me about the first time she really knew that what she felt for me wasn't just friendship. It was 8 months ago at her sister's wedding. I'd been her +1, and during the slow dances, when everyone paired off, we'd danced together. Just 2 friends dancing, nothing remarkable about it. Except Maya said that when the song ended and I hadn't let go of her hand right away, she'd felt something crack open inside her chest. I went home that night and cried, she admitted, because I knew, and I thought you could never feel the same way. I told her about all the small moments that had built up inside me like a wave, the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating, how she always saved me the last bite of whatever dessert we were sharing, the softness in her voice when she called me late at night just to talk about nothing. There was this day last spring, I said. We were walking through Prospect Park, and you stopped to take a photo of the cherry blossoms. The light was hitting your face just right, and you looked so happy, so completely yourself. And I thought, I want to make you this happy. I want to be the person who gets to see this smile every day. You do make me this happy, Maya said, squeezing my hand. You always have. We kissed again, slow and exploratory, learning the geography of each other. The sensitive spot just below her ear that made her gasp. The way she sighed when I ran my fingers through her hair. How we fit together like we'd been designed for this all along. I'm scared, Maya whispered against my neck. Of what? Of how much I feel, of how much I have to lose now. I understood. The fear was there for me too, humming beneath the joy, but I also understood something else now. Something the darkness and the rain and the safety of this moment had made clear. We've already been risking everything, I said. Every time we chose to stay friends instead of drifting apart. Every time we made each other a priority. Every time we showed up for each other, we were choosing this. We just didn't have the words for it yet. Maya was quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. When did you get so wise? I've had years to think about losing you. To imagine all the ways it could go wrong. I pulled back to look at her. But I never imagined this actually having you. Actually getting to love you out loud. And now that I'm here, I don't want to waste another second being afraid of losing what we finally have. She kissed me then, deep and urgent, and I felt her fear transmute into something else, determination, maybe, or hope. We held each other as the storm passed, as the rain softened to a gentle patter, as the first gray light of dawn began to seep through the curtains. I should call my roommate, Maya murmured. Let her know I'm okay. In a minute, I said. Not ready to let the outside world in yet. In a minute, she agreed. We must have dozed off eventually, exhausted by emotion in the late hour. When I woke, true morning had arrived and Maya was watching me with a soft expression that made my heart skip. Hi, she said. Hi, so this is real. Last night wasn't a dream. I kissed her in response, and she laughed against my lips. I could get used to this, she said. Good, because I'm not planning on stopping. We made breakfast together, moving around my tiny kitchen with a new kind of intimacy. Maya scrambled eggs while I made coffee, and every time we passed each other, we touched a hand on the small of her back, her fingers trailing across my shoulders. Casual contact that felt revolutionary. What do we tell people? Maya asked as we sat down to eat. The truth? Which is that we've been idiots. That we've been in love for years. That last night during a storm, we finally figured it out. Maya smiled, but there was worry in her eyes. My parents are going to ask questions. They've been pestering me about dating for months. And what will you tell them? That I'm with someone who makes me happy. Someone they already know and like. Someone who she reached across the table to take my hand. Someone I can't imagine my life without. Part 3. The first light the weeks that followed were like learning to see color for the first time. Everything was brighter, sharper, more vivid. We didn't hide it from our friends. Most of them claimed they'd been waiting for us to figure it out for years. Finally, Sophie had shouted when we told her over drinks, "Do you know how painful it's been watching you to dance around each other? I have a group chat called Rachel and Maya Are Idiots with 15 people in it." 15. Maya had gasped. "We could have sold tickets to your obliviousness," our friend James added. It was truly Olympic-level pining. But not everything was easy. Maya's parents, while ultimately accepting, needed time to adjust their expectations. My mother cried on the phone, happy tears, she assured me, but it was still hard to hear the emotion in her voice as she processed this new understanding of her daughter, and we had to learn each other all over again. In this new context, how to fight without the buffer of just friends to hide behind? How to navigate jealousy, insecurity, the vulnerable underbelly of romantic love. Our first real fight came 3 weeks in. Over something stupid. I'd canceled plans to stay late at work, and Maya had felt pushed aside. We'd both said things we regretted, and I'd watched her face close off in a way it never had before. "Maybe this was a mistake," she'd said quietly. "Maybe we were better as friends." The words had felt like ice water. "You don't mean that, don't I?" But her eyes were shining with unshed tears. "At least when we were friends, I didn't have to worry about you choosing work over me. About coming second to everything else in your life. You've never come second. Then why does it feel like I'm always the one adjusting? Waiting? Understanding?" The truth in her words had stung. I'd sat down, suddenly exhausted. "You're right. I'm sorry. I've been taking you for granted because I know you'll always be there. Because you're Maya, but that's not fair, and it's not okay." She'd sat down next to me, maintaining a careful distance. "I don't want to lose our friendship." "You won't? But we can't go backwards, Maya. We can only go forward. And that means learning how to do this, the messy, complicated, scary parts of being together." We'd talked for hours that night, setting boundaries, expressing needs, being honest about. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and when we finally kissed goodnight, it felt like we'd built something stronger than what we'd had before. Part 4. 6 months later, winter arrived, blanketing Brooklyn in snow. Maya had gradually moved more and more of her things into my apartment until one day we realized she'd been living there for a month without either of us officially acknowledging it. "I should probably tell my roommate," she said, looking around at her books on my shelves, her toothbrush in my bathroom, her coffee mug in my cupboard. "Or you could just move in officially." She turned to me, eyes wide. "Are you asking me to move in? I'm pointing out that you already have. I'm just suggesting we make it official. Pay rent together. Put both our names on the lease. Be those lesbians who move in together after 5 months. We've known each other for 6 years, Maya protested. "So technically we're moving very slowly." She laughed, then sobered. "Are you sure? That's a big step." I pulled her close, tucking her head under my chin. "Maya, you've been living in my heart for years. Having you in my apartment just makes sense." That was incredibly cheesy. "You love it." "I really do." We signed the new lease in January. In the same building, but a bigger apartment, 1 bedroom instead of a studio. Enough space for both our desks. A kitchen where we could actually cook together without bumping into each other constantly. Moving day was chaos. Sophie and James helped haul boxes up 3 flights of stairs, while Maya directed traffic with the precision of a general. I found myself stopping every few minutes just to watch her animated, confident, beautiful land, thinking about how lucky I was. "Earth to Rachel," James said, waving a hand in front of my face. "Stop mooning over your girlfriend and help me with this couch." "Let her moon," Sophie said. "It's adorable. Nauseating, but adorable." That night, surrounded by boxers we were too exhausted to unpack, Maya and I lay on our new mattress on the floor and stared at the ceiling. "We have our own bedroom," Maya said wonderingly. "We have our own home." She rolled toward me, propping herself up on one elbow. "Do you ever miss how simple it was before? When we were just friends, no, I said, honestly. I miss the version of you I had then. She was wonderful. But I love the you I have now even more. I love that I get to know you in every way, that there are no walls between us, even when I'm annoying. Especially then. She kissed me, and we made love slowly in our new bedroom, in the home we'd chosen together, and it felt like a promise being kept. Part 5. The story continues. Spring came, bringing with it Maya's 30th birthday. I planned a surprise party, inviting everyone who mattered: her family, our friends, coworkers who'd become friends. But before the party, I had a different surprise. Close your eyes, I said, leading her to the living room. Rachel, what are you doing? Trust me. When she opened her eyes, she saw the wall I'd been secretly working on for weeks, a gallery of photographs, spanning our entire friendship. Maya at her college graduation, the two of us in Montreal, her at her sister's wedding looking at me with an expression I now recognized as love. The night of the storm, a selfie we'd taken the next morning, both of us exhausted and happy, and obviously smitten. You kept all of these? She whispered. Everyone, because even when I couldn't admit what you meant to me, some part of me knew. Some part of me was documenting our love story all along. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that every day. The party was perfect, loud and joyful and full of love. But my favorite moment came late in the evening when Maya pulled me aside on our small balcony. I have something to tell you, she said. My heart jumped. Good something or bad something? Good. Really good. I got the job. The one in San Francisco? My stomach dropped. We'd discussed it, hypothetically a dream position at a tech company she admired, but I hadn't thought she'd actually applied. That's amazing, I managed. I turned it down. What? Maya, no. That's your dream job? My dream is you, she interrupted. My dream is this life we're building. And yes, that job would be amazing, but not if it means leaving you. Not if it means starting over somewhere else. I choose us. Maya, let me finish. I choose us, but I need to know you'd choose us too. That if the roles were reversed, you wouldn't resent me for being the thing that kept you from your dreams. I took her hands, holding them tightly. You are my dream. Everything else is just details. And if an opportunity came up that was right for both of us, we'd figure it out together. But you're never going to be the thing holding me back. You're the thing that makes everything else make sense. She kissed me there on the balcony, with the sounds of the party drifting out to us, with the city lights spread below us like promises. I love you, she said. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I know. I love you too. Scary amounts. We went back inside to her party, to our friends, to the life we were building one day at a time. And later, much later, when everyone had gone home, and we were cleaning up the remnants of the celebration, Maya said something that made me stop in my tracks. You know what I realized today? The night I had to stay in your room, the night of the storm, that wasn't the beginning of our love story. It was just the first chapter we both admitted we were writing. She was right. Our love story had begun years before, in 100 small moments neither of us had recognized as love. In late-night conversations and shared laughter. In the way she always saved me the last bite and I always remembered how she took her coffee. In 5 years of choosing each other, again and again, before we had the words or the courage to say why. The storm hadn't created our love. It had just washed away our fear long enough for us to finally see what had been there all along. I'm glad it rained that night, I said, pulling her close. Me too, Maya murmured against my shoulder. Best storm of my life. And standing there in our apartment, in the home we'd made together, surrounded by the evidence of a party celebrating a life she'd chosen to build with me, I couldn't help but agree. The storm had passed long ago. But the love it revealed, that was forever. 2 years had passed since that stormy night, and our life had settled into a rhythm that felt like home. Maya had found a position at a local startup that challenged her without requiring relocation. I'd been promoted to senior designer at my firm. We'd adopted a rescue cat named Storm, Maya's idea. And I'd rolled my eyes even as I fell in love with the scraggly orange tabby. But lately, I'd been carrying a secret. The ring had been burning a hole in my dresser drawer for 3 months. I'd found it at a small jewelry store in the West Village, a simple gold band with a tiny emerald, Maya's birth. Every time I thought about proposing, my heart would race and my palms would sweat, and I'd chicken out. You're being ridiculous, Sophie told me over coffee one Saturday morning. Maya was at a work conference, giving me the freedom to obsess openly. You've been together for 2 years? You live together. You have a cat together? Just ask her already. What if she says no? Rachel, that woman looks at you like you hung the moon. She's not going to say no. What if she's not ready? Then she'll tell you and you'll wait. But you won't know until you ask. Sophie leaned forward. What are you really afraid of? I stirred my coffee, watching the foam swirl. That I'll mess it up. That I'll find the wrong words or pick the wrong moment, and it won't be enough. She deserves perfect. She deserves you, Sophie said firmly. Nervous, imperfect, overthinking you. That's who she fell in love with. That night, I stood in our bedroom, the ring box in my hand, practicing what I'd say. Storm watched me from the bed, tail twitching with judgment. Don't look at me like that, I told the cat. This is hard. The door opened and Maya walked in, dropping her conference bag on the floor. She looked exhausted, her hair escaping its bun, her blazer rumpled. Hey, she said, brightening when she saw me. I missed you. I missed you too. How was the conference? Boring. Long. Full of men explaining things I already know. She kicked off her heels and came to kiss me. But I'm home now, so it's better. This was it. This moment with her tired and real and completely herself. This was perfect. Maya, I started, my voice shaking. She pulled back, concerned. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's the thing. I took a breath. Do you remember that night, 2 years ago, when you showed up soaking wet during the storm? A smile played at her lips. Kind of hard to forget. You said you were in love with me. That you had been for months, and I kissed you because I'd been too afraid to say it first. Too afraid to risk everything we had for something we might have? Rachel, let me finish, please. I pulled the ring box from my pocket, and Maya's eyes went wide. These 2 years have been the best of my life. Not because they've been perfect, we've fought. We've struggled. We've had to figure out how to be partners and not just friends. But we did it. We figured it out together, and I wake up every morning grateful that I get to love you. That I get to be loved by you. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now, and I was pretty sure I was crying too. I don't have a grand gesture planned. I don't have rose petals or a fancy restaurant or a flash mob. I just have this moment in our bedroom with our judgmental cat watching, but that feels right, because our love has always been in the small moments. In the everyday, in choosing each other again and again. I got down on one knee, opening the box. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Maya, Patel, will you marry me? For a long moment, she just stared at me, tears falling freely. Then she dropped to her knees in front of me, taking my face in her hands. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. I barely managed to get the ring on her finger before she was kissing me. Both of us crying and laughing and shaking. Storm meowed loudly, demanding attention, and we broke apart laughing. I was so nervous, I admitted. I know. You've been acting weird for weeks. You knew? I suspected. You kept looking at me with this expression like you were about to jump off a cliff. She held up her hand, admiring the ring. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not. Perfect for me. Then? She kissed me again, softer this time. I can't believe I get to marry you. I can't believe you said yes. Did you really think I'd say no? A part of me did. The part that still can't quite believe this is real. Maya pulled back, her expression serious. Rachel, look at me. This is real. I am real. My love for you is real, and I'm going to keep choosing you every single day for the rest of our lives. We stayed there on the floor, holding each other, until Storm got tired of being ignored and inserted herself forcefully between us, purring like an engine. I think she approves, Maya said. Scratching behind the cat's ears, she better? She's going to be the ring bearer. Maya laughed. We're those lesbians now, the ones with the cat in the wedding. We've always been those lesbians. We're just making it official. Wedding planning, we discovered, was both wonderful and terrible. Wonderful because it meant actively building toward our future, making decisions together about the life we wanted to celebrate. Terrible because it seemed like everyone had opinions about what we should do. You have to have it in the spring, Maya's mother insisted. June weddings are traditional. We're 2 women getting married, Maya replied patiently. Nothing about this is traditional, Mom. What about a destination wedding? My mother suggested. Somewhere romantic. Italy, maybe. Mom, we can't afford Italy, and neither can half our friends. You should do it in a barn, Sophie said. Very rustic chic. We live in Brooklyn, I pointed out. Where exactly are we finding a barn? In the end, we chose what felt like USA's small ceremony in Prospect Park, where we'd had so many walks and conversations over the years, followed by a reception at our favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate, just the people we loved, celebrating with us, but the process of getting there tested us in ways I hadn't anticipated. I don't understand why we can't have a dance with our fathers, Maya said one night, her voice tight with frustration. We were sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by planning documents and half-eaten takeout, because it's called a father-daughter dance, and we're marrying each other, not our fathers, I said, immediately regretting my tone. So we just ignore that tradition completely. Pretend like our families don't matter. That's not what I said, it's what you implied. Maya stood up, pacing. I know you're uncomfortable with some of the more traditional elements, but this matters to my parents. It matters to me. Then we'll do it. I said quietly. I'm sorry. I'm being defensive because I'm scared. She stopped pacing. Scared of what? Of getting it wrong? Of having this day that's supposed to be about us turn into a day about making everyone else happy. I rubbed my eyes, and I'm scared that I'm not enough. That I can't give you the fairy tale wedding you deserve. Maya came back to the table, taking my hands. Rachel, I don't want a fairy tale. I want you. I want us. Everything else is just decoration. Even the father-daughter dance. Okay, that one matters a little bit. She smiled. But we can make it our own. Maybe we both dance with our parents. Or we do one song with them, then immediately drag each other onto the dance floor. I like that, I said. Making it ours. That's what we've always done, right? Take what works, leave what doesn't, and figure out the rest as we go. I pulled her into my lap, wrapping my arms around her waist. How did you get so wise? I learned from my fiancée. She's pretty smart, even when she's being stubborn. I love you. I love you too. Even when you're making wedding planning way more complicated than it needs to be. We kissed, and the tension that had been building between us dissolved. Storm jumped onto the table, knocking over a glass of water directly onto our seating chart. That's definitely a sign, Maya said, watching the ink run, that we should elope. That we should stop planning for tonight and go to bed. Best idea you've had all day. 3 weeks before the wedding, Maya came home and found me crying on the bathroom floor. Rachel, what's wrong? She dropped to her knees beside me, panic in her voice. Are you hurt? Are you sick? I can't do this, I sobbed. Can't do what? Talk to me. Get married. Stand up in front of everyone and promise forever. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough at being your wife? What if, hey, stop. Maya took my face in her hands, forcing me to look at her. Where is this coming from? I saw Jessica today. Maya's expression shifted. Jessica was my ex, the one serious relationship I'd had before Maya. It had ended badly, Jessica had cheated, and I'd spent months convinced I was unlovable, and Maya prompted gently, and she asked if I was sure about getting married. She said marriage was hard, that the odds were against us, that statistically, most marriages fail. Especially, I stopped. Especially for people like us, LGBTQ plus couples. She had statistics. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up, pulling me to my feet. Come with me. She led me to our bedroom, to the wall of photographs I'd given her for her birthday. The visual history of our relationship. Look at these, Maya said. Really? Look at them. I did. 7 years of friendship. 2 years of partnership. Countless moments of joy and struggle and growth. Jessica doesn't know us, Maya said firmly. She doesn't know how we fight fair, how we apologize, how we choose each other even when it's hard. She doesn't know that you've seen me at my absolute worst, and loved me anyway. That I've seen you crumble and held you while you put yourself back together. But what if she's right? What if we're naive to think we can beat the odds? Maybe we are naive. Maya took my hands. But I'd rather be naive and hopeful with you than cynical and safe without you. And you know what? Maybe some marriages do fail. Maybe the odds are bad. But we are not a statistic. We are Rachel and Maya, and we have been defying expectations since the day we became friends. I'm scared, I whispered. So am I terrified, actually? But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting fear rob us of this beautiful life we could have together. She pressed her forehead to mine. Do you still love me? More than anything, do you still want to marry me? Yes. God, yes. Then we're going to be okay. Not because we're perfect, but because we're us. I kissed her, tasting salt from both our tears. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let Jessica get in my head. She's not in your head. Fear is, and that's okay. That's human. But you don't have to face it alone anymore. That night, we made a list of all our fears about marriage. It was long and honest and sometimes silly. Fear of becoming boring. Fear of taking each other for granted. Fear of growing apart. Fear that we'd stop having sex as often. Fear that we'd become those couples who had nothing to talk about. Then we made another list, all the reasons we believed in us. All the evidence that we could handle whatever came, and that list was longer. We're going to be okay, I said, looking at our combined lists. Better than okay, Maya agreed. We're going to be amazing. The morning of our wedding was chaos. Has anyone seen my other earring? Maya's sister Priya shouted from the bathroom. The florist is 20 minutes late, Sophie reported. Phone pressed to her ear. Storm just threw up on my dress. I called out, staring at the small orange stain on white fabric. That's good luck. My mother called back cheerfully. Maya appeared in the doorway of our bedroom, already dressed in her ivory suit, her hair swept up, her makeup perfect. She looked like a dream, sophisticated and beautiful, and so completely herself that my breath caught. You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, I said weakly. Screw tradition. Our cat threw up on your dress? I'm getting you the backup dress from the closet. She paused, taking me in. Also, you're beautiful, even with cat vomit on you. Smooth talker. She got the backup dress a simpler design I'd bought just in case and helped me into it while our mothers fussed in the living room and our friends ran around like chickens with their heads cut off. Ready? She asked when I was dressed, terrified. Good, me too. She kissed me softly. Careful not to smudge our lipstick. Let's go get married. The ceremony was everything I'd dreamed and nothing like I'd planned. The florist showed up late, but the flowers were perfect. Priya found her earring in Storm's litter box. My father cried through his entire reading. Maya's mother sobbed audibly when we exchanged vows. Standing there, holding Maya's hands, looking into her eyes, I forgot about being nervous. I forgot about the guests and the photographer and whether my hair looked okay. All I could see was her, the woman I'd loved for years. The woman who'd loved me back, the woman I was choosing and who was choosing me. Rachel, take you, Maya, to be my wife, I said, voice strong despite the tears streaming down my face. I promise to laugh with you in the good times and hold you through the bad. I promise to never stop trying to make you smile. I promise to share the last bite. Remember your coffee order, and always choose you. Maya was crying too, mascara running slightly in a way that made her even more beautiful. I, Maya, take you, Rachel, to be my wife. I promise to love you on the hard days and the easy ones. I promise to build you up, challenge you, and stand beside you. I promise to be your partner in every adventure, your comfort in every storm, and your home wherever we go. When the efficient our friend James, who'd gotten ordained online specifically for this, pronounced us married, the cheer that went up from our guests was deafening. Maya pulled me close and kissed me, and I thought I might explode from happiness. We did it, she whispered against my lips. We really did. The reception was a blur of joy. Our first dance was to the song that had been playing the night she stayed in my room. We'd tracked it down. A jazz standard about storms passing and love remaining. Dancing with our fathers was sweet and strange and made both our parents cry again. The food was delicious. The speeches were funny and heartfelt. And when Sophie stood up to toast us, she made everyone laugh by pulling out her phone. I'd like to share some messages from the Rachel and Maya Are Idiots group chat, she announced. Starting from 5 years ago, why are they dancing so close, if they're just friends? From 4 years ago, I cannot watch them share another dessert like this. And my personal favorite, from 6 months before they finally got together, I'm staging an intervention. This is ridiculous. Everyone laughed, including us, because it was ridiculous. But it was also perfect. Late in the evening, Maya and I snuck away to the restaurant's rooftop terrace. The party continued below us, but up here it was quiet, just the two of us and the city lights. Hey, wife, I said, trying out the word. Hey, wife, Maya replied, grinning. How does it feel? Exactly the same and completely different. We're still us, but now we're official. We were always official. Now we just have the paperwork to prove it. She pulled me close, swaying even though there was no music. And now when people ask about us, I get to say my wife. I've been practicing. My wife, Rachel. Rachel, my wife. Dr. and Mrs. Dash, wait. Are we taking the same last name? We never decided that. We should probably figure it out before we file the marriage license. Definitely something we should have discussed before the wedding. We both laughed. The sound carrying out over the city we called home. I love you, Maya said. I love us. I love that we're the couple who forgets to discuss last names until after the wedding. I love you too. And honestly, I don't care what name we use as long as I get to be yours. You've always been mine. This just makes it official. We stayed up there until Sophie came to find us, dragging us back down to cut the cake and throw the bouquet and dance until our feet hurt. And when the party finally ended, when we'd said goodbye to everyone and climbed into the car that would take us home, not to a hotel or a honeymoon suite, but to our apartment, our life, our real and imperfect and absolutely beautiful home, Maya turned to me. This was perfect, she said, even though Storm threw up on my dress. Especially because of that. Because that's us. Chaotic and real and always figuring it out. I can't wait for the rest of our lives, neither can I. 3 months after that second storm, Maya came home with a look I'd learned to recognize over the years. The one that meant she'd been thinking about something important and was trying to find the right words. We need to talk, she said, setting her bag down carefully. My stomach dropped. Those 4 words, even in a happy marriage, carried weight. Okay, I said, closing my laptop. What's going on? She sat down across from me at our kitchen table. The same table where we'd had so many conversations, some easy, some hard. All of them building the foundation of us. I want to have a baby. I stared at her, my brain short-circuiting. A baby? Not right now. Not tomorrow, but soon. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I can't stop thinking about it. And I needed to tell you. She was speaking quickly, nervously. I know we've never really talked about kids beyond that vague someday maybe conversation we had years ago, and I know this is huge, and I'm terrified you're going to Maya. I reached across the table, taking her hands. Breathe. She took a shaky breath. Are you mad? No, I'm not mad. I'm just processing. I squeezed her hands. Tell me about it. When did you start thinking about this? Remember my cousin's baby shower last month? The one where you held her nephew for like 2 hours straight? Yeah. Maya smiled softly. I couldn't put him down, Rachel. And I kept thinking, I want this. I want to hold our baby. I want to see your eyes looking back at me from a tiny face. I want to teach someone to ride a bike and read bedtime stories and watch them discover the world. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears. And I know it's complicated for us. We'd have to decide who carries, and there's IVF or adoption, and it's expensive and difficult, and there's no guarantee it would even work. But I can't stop wanting it. I was quiet for a long moment, letting her words settle into me. The truth was, I'd been having similar thoughts. Watching Maya with that baby, seeing the tenderness in her face, something had shifted in me too. I want it to, I said quietly. Maya's head snapped up. You do, I do. I want to build a family with you. I want to see you as a mother. I want us to have that chaos and joy and terror together. I paused. But you're right, it's complicated, and we need to really think through what this means. I know. That's why I wanted to talk about it now while it's still theoretical, so we can figure it out together. We stayed up until 3 a.m. that night, talking through every angle. Who would carry? Maya was younger, but I had better insurance. How would we conceive? Known donor? Anonymous donor? Adoption? What about our careers? Our tiny 2-bedroom apartment? The fact that we could barely keep a plant alive? Let alone a human. We're going to be terrible at this, I said at one point, half laughing, half crying with exhaustion. Probably, Maya agreed, but we'll be terrible together. That's what matters. The decision to start trying felt both momentous and strangely simple. After months of research, consultations, and discussions with a fertility clinic, we decided Maya would carry. We'd use an anonymous donor from a sperm bank. And we'd try IUI first, before considering IVF. What no one tells you about trying to conceive as a same-sex couple is how clinical it becomes, how unromantic, how expensive, how emotionally exhausting. The first attempt failed. So did the second. And the third. Maybe this is a sign, Maya said after the 4th negative test. She was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, her voice flat in a way that scared me. A sign of what? That we're not meant to be parents. That we were fooling ourselves thinking we could do this. I lay down beside her, turning to face her. Maya, look at me. She didn't move. Please. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed and exhausted. This is hard, I said. It's so much harder than I thought it would be. But it doesn't mean we're not meant to be parents. It means we're going through something difficult, and we have to decide if we want to keep trying. Do you? She whispered. Want to keep trying? Yes, but only if you do. Only if this is still what you want and not what you think you should want. Maya was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm scared that I want it too much. That I'm making this the only thing that matters. That I'm losing myself in the wanting. Then we take a break. We step back, breathe, remember who we are outside of this. What if we never figure it out? What if I never get pregnant? Then we explore other options. Adoption, fostering, or we build a beautiful life. Just the two of us and Storm? There's no wrong answer here. Maya, there's just what's right for us. She rolled toward me, burying her face in my neck. I love you. I love you too. So much we took 3 months off from trying. We traveled a week in Maine, just the two of us and the ocean. We reconnected with friends we'd been neglecting. We went to therapy, individually and together, to process the grief of failed attempts and the pressure we'd been putting on ourselves, and slowly, we found our way back to each other. Back to the partnership that had always been our foundation. I want to try one more time, Maya said one night over dinner. We were at our favorite restaurant, the same one where we'd had our wedding reception. If it doesn't work, I think I want to explore adoption. Okay, I said. One more time. The 5th attempt worked. Maya took the pregnancy test alone early one morning while I was still sleeping. She crawled back into bed and pressed the positive test into my hand without saying a word. I stared at it, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Is this real? I took 3. They're all positive. I pulled her to me, holding her so tightly she squeaked in protest. We were both crying, both laughing, both terrified and elated in equal measure. We're going to be moms, Maya whispered. We're going to be moms, I repeated, and the words felt like magic. Pregnancy, it turned out, was both miraculous and miserable. Maya had morning sickness that lasted all day. She cried at commercials, craved weird food combinations at 2 a.m., and developed an aversion to the smell of coffee that broke her heart. I'm a monster. She sobbed one night eating pickles with peanut butter while I rubbed her feet. I yelled at the mailman today for delivering a package too loudly. You're growing a human. You're allowed to be a monster. I don't feel beautiful. I feel like a bloated whale. I looked at my wife, her belly just starting to show, her hair wild. Pickle juice on her chin and felt such overwhelming love I could barely breathe. You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen. I said, honestly, you're legally required to say that. I'm emotionally compelled to say it. There's a difference. I moved my hands to her belly. Hi, baby. This is your mom, Rachel. The one who's not currently housing you. Your mama, Maya, is doing all the hard work. Don't leave me out of the narration, Maya said. But she was smiling. She's smiling now, baby. That's a good sign. She's not always smiling. Sometimes she's crying because a dog food commercial was too emotional. Sometimes she's angry because I breathed too loudly. You're going to love her so much. Maya put her hand over mine. We're really doing this. We really are. The pregnancy progressed. We painted the nursery a soft yellow because we'd decided not to find out the sex. We took childbirth classes where we were usually the only same-sex couple, answering the same questions about our situation over and over with varying degrees of patience. Which one of you is the real mom? A woman asked at one class. We both are, Maya said evenly. But who's the biological? We're both the real moms, I interrupted. I'm not going to love this child any less because I didn't carry them. Maya's not going to be less of a mother to them because she did. We're both their parents. That's the end of it. The woman looked taken aback, but the instructor, a kind, older woman named Patricia, smiled at us approvingly. Thank you for saying that, she said after class. Some people need to hear it. Maya's mother came to visit during the second trimester. She walked into our apartment, saw the nursery, and burst into tears. I can't believe my baby is having a baby, she said, hugging Maya carefully. Mom, you're crushing me. Let me be emotional. But she stepped back, wiping her eyes. Then she turned to me. And you? How are you doing with all this? Excited? Terrified? Feeling a little useless since Maya's doing all the actual work. You're not useless, Maya's mother said firmly. You're her partner. That matters more than you know. She paused. Can I give you some advice? Of course. The next few months are going to be hard. The birth will be hard. The first year will be even harder. You're going to be exhausted and overwhelmed, and sometimes you'll wonder if you made a mistake. She took both our hands. But don't forget each other. Don't let the baby become the only thing. You two were a team first. Stay a team. We will, I promised. Good. Now, show me what you've got in this nursery. I'm here to judge your color choices. Maya went into labor 3 weeks early, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Rachel, she said, shaking me awake. It's time. I shot up, immediately, wide awake and panicking. Time? Are you sure? Maybe it's Braxton Hicks. Should I call the doctor? Where's the bag? Did we pack the bag? Rachel, what? Breathe. I took a breath. Then another. Okay, let's do this. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Maya was calm, timing her contractions on her phone app, while I white-knuckled the steering wheel and ran through every worst-case scenario my brain could conjure. You're spiraling, Maya observed. I'm not spiraling. You're definitely spiraling. I can hear you breathing weird. How are you so calm right now? I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But one of us has to pretend we have our shit together, and you've clearly given up on that. Despite everything, I laughed. Labor was long. 18 hours of Maya in pain, of me feeling helpless, of nurses coming and going, of the doctor checking progress and telling us to be patient. I changed my mind. Maya gasped during a particularly bad contraction. I don't want to do this anymore. Too late for that, I said, holding her hand as she squeezed mine hard enough to crack bones. This is your fault. Technically, it's the sperm donor's fault. Don't make me laugh right now. It hurts, but she was smiling even through the pain. At 8:47 p.m., our daughter was born. She came into the world screaming, red-faced and furious, and the sound was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. She's here. Maya sobbed as the doctor placed the baby on her chest. She's really here. I couldn't speak. Couldn't do anything but stare at this tiny, perfect person we'd made. This little girl with Maya's nose and a full head of dark hair and fingers so small they could barely wrap around mine. Hi, Zara, Maya whispered. We'd chosen the name months ago. It meant princess in Hebrew, blooming flower in Arabic, something beautiful in both our heritages. We're your moms. We've been waiting for you. Zara stopped crying as if she recognized Maya's voice. Her eyes, dark and unfocused, seemed to search for the source of the sound. Do you want to cut the cord? The doctor asked me. My hands were shaking, but I did it. And then Zara was being cleaned and weighed and assessed, and Maya was being taken care of. And I stood there in the middle of it all, feeling like the entire world had just shifted on its axis. "You did it," I told Maya when I could finally speak again. "You were amazing." "We did it," she corrected, reaching for my hand. "We're moms now. We're moms," I repeated, and started crying all over again. No. One tells you how hard the first year is. Everyone warns you. People love to warn new parents, but warnings don't prepare you for the reality. For the exhaustion so profound, you hallucinate. For the fear that grips you every time the baby makes a weird sound. For the fights you have with your partner over whose turn it is to change the diaper to get up at 3 a.m. To function like a human being. "I can't do this," Maya sobbed one night at 4 a.m. Zara had been crying for 2 hours straight. Nothing we did helped. And we were both at the end of our ropes. "Yes, you can. We can. I'm a terrible mother. I can't even get her to stop crying." "You're not a terrible mother. She's fed. She's changed. She's safe. Sometimes babies just cry. What if something's wrong? What if we're missing something? Then we'll figure it out together." Like we always do. But I was scared too. Terrified, actually. Terrified that I was doing everything wrong. That I wasn't bonding with Zara the way I should. That Maya would realize she was doing all the real parenting while I just existed on the periphery. "You're quiet," Maya observed one afternoon. Zara was finally napping, and we were eating cold pizza in silence. "Just tired." "Rachel, what?" "Don't shut me out. Not now." I set down my pizza. "I feel like I'm failing. Like I'm not. Enough. You're her mother in a way I can never be. You carried her. You're nursing her. You have this connection I can't access. And I'm just here watching you be her parent while I figure out how to fit into this new equation." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she passed me Zara's baby monitor. "Listen." I listened. Zara was making little sleeping sounds, soft and sweet. "She doesn't care that I carried her," Maya said. "She doesn't care that I'm nursing her. She cares that when she cries, you pick her up. That when she's scared, you're there. That your voice soothes her just as much as mine does." "How do you know?" "Because I watch you with her. I see the way she calms when you hold her. The way she tracks you with her eyes when you walk across the room. You're not peripheral, Rachel. You're her mom. Fully, completely, without qualification." "I love her so much it scares me," I admitted. "Me too. But we don't have to be scared alone." Slowly, we found our rhythm. We learned to communicate better, to ask for help, to forgive ourselves for not being perfect. We learned that Zara liked being bounced more than rocked, that she hated the swing but loved the carrier, that she would only sleep if she could hear white noise. We learned how to be partners and parents simultaneously, how to steal moments of connection in the chaos, how to remember we were Rachel and Maya before we were Zara's moms on Zara's first birthday. We threw a small party in our apartment. Our families came along with our closest friends. Zara, wearing a tiny birthday crown, smashed her cake with gleeful enthusiasm while everyone laughed and took photos. "Can you believe it's been a year?" Maya asked, watching our daughter with obvious adoration. "Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago simultaneously. She's perfect. She really is." Maya leaned against me, and I wrapped my arm around her waist. "We did okay, didn't we?" "We did better than okay. We survived the first year. That's an accomplishment." "Too many more," Maya said. "Too many more." I agreed. Years passed in that strange way time has when you're raising children simultaneously too fast and achingly slow. Zara grew from a baby into a toddler. From a toddler into a little girl with opinions and preferences and a personality that was entirely her own. She loved dinosaurs and the color purple. She insisted on wearing rain boots, even when it wasn't raining. She asked a million questions a day and accepted our answers with serious consideration. "Mama, why do I have two moms?" she asked one day at age 4. Looking up from her coloring book, Maya and I exchanged glances. We'd been preparing for this question, but it still caught us off guard. Because some families have two moms, some have two dads, some have one mom and one dad, and some have other combinations, I said carefully. Families can look lots of different ways, but why? Because love can look lots of different ways too, Maya added. Your mom, Rachel, and I fell in love, and we wanted to have a baby together. So we did, and we got you. Zara considered this. Emma has a mom and a dad. That's right. And I have you and Mom Rachel. Exactly. Okay. She went back to her coloring. The question apparently answered to her satisfaction. That was easier than I expected, Maya whispered to me later. Wait until the teenage years. I'm sure she'll have more complicated questions then. Don't remind me. I'm not ready for her to grow up. But grow up, she did. Kindergarten came, then first grade, then second. We attended school plays where she dressed as a tree and forgot her lines. We cheered at soccer games where she spent more time picking dandelions than playing. We helped with homework and dealt with playground conflicts and navigated the complex social dynamics of elementary school, and somewhere in the midst of it all, Maya and I found each other again, not as new lovers, not as struggling new parents, but as partners who'd built something real and lasting. Do you ever miss it? Maya asked one night after Zara was in bed. We were sitting on our couch, her feet in my lap, Storm sleeping between us, despite being ancient and grumpy. Miss what? The beginning, when it was just us, when we could be spontaneous and stay up all night talking and not worry about school schedules and soccer practice. I thought about it. Sometimes, but I wouldn't trade this for anything really, not even for a full night's sleep. Okay, maybe for that. She laughed, nudging me with her foot. Seriously though? Are you happy? Deliriously? Are you? So happy I sometimes can't believe it's real. She paused. Do you remember that night? The storm? Which one? The first one. When I showed up soaking wet and you let me stay? Of course I remember. I was so scared that night. Not of the storm, of telling you how I felt. Of risking everything for something I wasn't even sure you wanted. Best risk you ever took. Best risk we both took. She smiled. I'm glad it rained that night. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the distant sound of traffic, the rhythm of Storm's purring, the occasional creak of Zara moving in her sleep. Hey Rachel. Yeah, I love you. I love our life. I love our family. I love you too. Always have, always will. Even when I'm old and gray and Zara's moved out and it's just us and whatever geriatric cat we have by then, especially then, that's when we get to be young again. Travel. Stay up late. Be spontaneous. We'll come full circle. I can't wait. Me neither. 20 years after that first storm, Maya and I stood on a beach in Maine watching the ocean and holding hands. Zara was in college now, studying environmental science and dating a sweet boy named Marcus who made her laugh. Our apartment felt too quiet without her, but we were adjusting, learning to be just Rachel and Maya again after 2 decades of being Zara's moms. Do you hear that? Maya asked. What? Thunder. There's a storm coming. I looked at the horizon and saw dark clouds gathering. We should head back to the hotel. Or, Maya said, turning to me with a mischievous smile I recognized from decades ago, we could stay and watch it come in. We'll get soaked. So, we've been soaked before. The first drops of rain started to fall and I laughed. After all these years, after all we'd been through, the fears and fights, the joy and sorrow, the growing and changing, here we were, still choosing each other, still finding adventure together. You know what I just realized? I said as the rain intensified. What? We've been together longer now than we were apart before we got together. More of our lives together than separate. That's a strange thought. A good strange or a bad strange? The best strange. Maya pulled me close, rain soaking through our clothes. I'd do it all again, you know? Every moment, even the hard ones, even the sleep deprivation and the terrible twos in that time Zara drew on the walls with permanent marker. Even that, because it was ours. It's still ours. We kissed in the rain, and it felt like the first time and the 1000th time all at once. Like coming home and beginning an adventure. Like everything we'd been and everything we'd yet to become. I love you, Maya. I love you too, Rachel. Thank you for letting me stay that night. Thank you for showing up. The storm grew stronger, but we stayed there on the beach. 2 women who'd loved each other through every season, every change, every storm. And as lightning lit up the sky and thunder rolled across the water, I thought about the girl I'd been that night 20 years ago, scared and hopeful, opening her door to a soaking wet friend, having no idea that her entire life was about to change. If I could go back and tell her anything, I'd tell her this. Say yes to the rain. Say yes to the fear. Say yes to the love that's standing on your doorstep, dripping and trembling and brave enough to risk everything. Because that risk, that leap into the unknown, it's worth it. Every single time the apartment felt cavernous without Zara. It wasn't actually any bigger, same 2 bedrooms. Same cozy living space we'd inhabited for over a decade. But without our daughter's energy filling every corner, without her music playing and her friends laughing and her constant motion, it felt like we were living in a museum of our own lives. We should redecorate her room, Maya said one Saturday morning, 2 months after dropping Zara at college. She was standing in the doorway of what had been the nursery, then the little girl's bedroom, then the teenager's sanctuary already. She's not coming back, Rachel. Not permanently. She visit, but this isn't her room anymore. It's only been 2 months. Maya turned to look at me, and I saw the grief in her eyes. I know. But if we leave it like this, I'm going to come in here every day and cry. I need it to be something else. Something that's ours again. I understood. The empty nest wasn't just about missing Zara, it was about rediscovering who we were without the identity of parents consuming us. What should we turn it into? I asked, coming to stand beside her. I was thinking, a studio for you. You've always talked about wanting a dedicated space for your design work? Maya, that's your space too. What about your reading nook idea? We can do both. Split it. You take the window side for your desk. I'll take the other side for a reading chair and bookshelves. She leaned against me. We can make it ours, together. So we did. We spent the next month transforming Zara's room into our shared creative space. We painted the walls a deep teal. I set up my drafting table by the window where I could watch the street below. Maya installed floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and bought an oversized armchair that swallowed her whole when she curled up in it. "This is nice," Maya said one evening. She was reading while I sketched. The comfortable silence between us punctuated only by the turning of pages and the scratch of my pencil. "It is," I agreed, "though I miss her." "Me too." Every day, Maya looked up from her book. "But I'm also enjoying this us. Having time to just be together without coordinating schedules and making lunches and checking homework. Is it terrible that I feel guilty about enjoying it?" "Not terrible. Very parental, actually." She smiled. "We're allowed to miss her and enjoy this new phase simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive." My phone buzzed. A text from Zara, video call in 10 minutes. She wants to video chat, I told Maya. Of course she does. It's Saturday, our weekly check-in. When Zara's face appeared on screen, she was wearing a university hoodie and looked tired but happy. "Hey moms," she said. "Guess what? I got an A on my ecology paper." "That's wonderful, honey," Maya said, leaning into frame beside me. "And Marcus and I went to this protest about ocean conservation, and I met these amazing people who work for Green, and they said they're looking for summer interns." She talked for 20 minutes straight, barely pausing for breath, telling us about her classes and her friends and her dreams for the future. And I realized this was what we'd been working toward all along, raising a daughter confident enough to leave, secure enough to know she could always come home. "We love you, Zara," I said when she finally wound down. "Love you too. Both of you. Even though Mom, Maya, keeps texting me reminders to eat vegetables, someone has to," Maya protested. After we hung up, Maya turned to me. "She's thriving." "She is. We did good. We did great." She paused. "Now, what do we do with ourselves?" "I have an idea," I said. "Paris." Maya stared at me like I'd suggested we move to Mars. "You want to go to Paris?" "Not forever. Just for a few months. A sabbatical. You can work remotely and I can freelance from anywhere. We always talked about living abroad someday. Why not now?" We were sitting at our kitchen table with coffee, having the kind of spontaneous conversation that had become possible again without a child to consider. "Rachel, we can't just go to Paris." "Why not?" "Because we have jobs. And an apartment. And Storm is 16 years old and absolutely cannot handle international travel. Sophie said she'd take Storm. Our lease is month to month now, and we both have vacation time we've never used." I pulled out my laptop, opening the tab I'd had open for weeks. "Look, I found a sublet in the Marais. 2 bedrooms, fully furnished, available January through March." Maya leaned forward, studying the listing. I could see the war happening behind her eyes, practicality versus possibility. "When did you start planning this?" "The day after we dropped Zara at college. I was lying in bed listening to you cry in the bathroom because you were trying not to let me hear. And I thought we've spent the last 20 years being responsible. Being parents, being adults. Maybe it's time to be young again. We're 50 years old, Rachel." "Exactly. Young enough to have an adventure, old enough to appreciate it." I took her hand. "Maya, I want to walk along the Seine with you. I want to eat croissants for breakfast and drink wine with lunch and get lost in museums. I want to remember what it's like to be just us." She was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos of the Parisian apartment. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. The same adventurous smile she'd had 25 years ago when she'd suggested we road trip to Montreal on a whim. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let's go to Paris." We arrived in Paris in January. When the city was cold and gray and absolutely magical, the apartment was perfecta. 3rd floor walk-up with wooden floors that creaked, tall windows overlooking a quiet street, and a tiny kitchen where we had to coordinate our movements like a dance. "This is insane," Maya said, standing at the window and watching people hurry past below. We're actually here," I echoed. Those 3 months were a revelation. Without the structure of our regular lives, we had to rediscover each other. We learned that Maya was actually an early riser when she didn't have to drag herself out of bed for work, that I could speak more French than I thought, that we both loved walking aimlessly through neighborhoods, discovering hidden bookstores and tiny cafes. We had our first real fight in years over something stupid. I'd booked museum tickets without asking if she wanted to go, assuming she'd be interested. "You always do this," Maya said, her voice tight with frustration. "You plan things without asking me. Like my time is just automatically yours. I was trying to be helpful. I know you wanted to see the Musée d'Orsay. Yes, but I wanted to choose when. I wanted agency in my own schedule. We'd stood on opposite sides of our small Parisian living room, the tension between us feeling enormous in the confined space. You're right, I said finally. I'm sorry. I got so used to coordinating everything for 3 people that I forgot to ask if you wanted to be coordinated. Maya softened, and I'm being sensitive because I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not Zara's mom or someone's partner. I need space to just be Maya, then take it. Tell me what you need. I need Tuesday afternoons to myself. To wander or read or just sit in a cafe alone. I need to not be accountable to anyone for a few hours a week. Done. And I need Saturday mornings to sketch in the Luxembourg Gardens without feeling like I should be doing something more productive. Deal. We started doing that, claiming time for ourselves. Then coming back together to share what we'd discovered. Maya found a tiny cinema that played old French films. I found a life drawing class in a basement studio in Montmartre, and slowly, we became not just partners but individuals again. Not just Maya and Rachel, but Maya and Rachel. I feel like I'm falling in love with you again, Maya said one night. We were lying in bed, the sounds of the city filtering through the window again. Differently, I fell in love with college Maya's best friend. Then I fell in love with my wife, the mother of my child. Now I'm falling in love with this version of you, the one who spends Saturday mornings drawing strangers and comes home with charcoal on her fingers and stories about the other artists. I'm falling in love with you too. The version who watches French films she doesn't fully understand just because she likes the way the language sounds. Who's reading Simone de Beauvoir in the original French with a dictionary beside her. We're both kind of pretentious here, aren't we? Incredibly pretentious. It's wonderful. On our last week in Paris, we took a day trip to Giverny to see Monet's gardens. It was early March, still cold, but the first flowers were beginning to bloom. Look, Maya said, pointing to a cluster of yellow daffodils, pushing through the last of the winter frost. They're surviving. They're more than surviving. They're blooming. She turned to me and there were tears in her eyes. I don't want to go home. Me neither. But we have to. We do. Will we still be this version of us? When we're back in Brooklyn with our regular lives? I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo mixed with the garden's emerging spring. We'll be different, but we'll still be us. We always figure it out. Brooklyn felt different when we returned. Or maybe we were different, and the city just reflected that change. We fell back into our routines. But they weren't the same routines. I kept my Saturday morning sketching time, finding parks in New York where I could draw. Maya kept her Tuesday afternoon cinema dates. Discovering an art house theater in the village that played international films, we started hosting dinner parties again, reconnecting with friends we'd neglected during the intense parenting years. Sophie and her husband came over, along with James and his boyfriend, and we all stayed up too late, drinking wine and telling stories. You two are different, Sophie observed when Maya had gone to the kitchen for more wine. Lighter somehow. Paris changed us, I said. Or maybe it just gave us permission to change. It suits you. The changing? Maya came back with the wine, and the conversation shifted, but Sophie's words stayed with me. We were different. We were allowing ourselves to grow and evolve instead of trying to stay frozen in whatever version of ourselves felt safest. Zara came home for spring break, and I watched her interact with us with new eyes. She'd grown too. She was more confident, more herself. Mom, Rachel, did you really go to life drawing classes in Paris? She asked over dinner. I did. It was terrifying at first, but then it was amazing. I love that for you. She turned to Maya. And Mama, you're reading French philosophy now. Attempting to, Maya corrected, with a lot of dictionary assistance. You guys are cool, Zara said. And it was the highest compliment we could have received from our 20-year-old daughter after she went back to school. Maya and I sat on our couch, storm purring between us despite being so old she could barely jump up anymore. Do you think we've set a good example? Maya asked, showing her that you can keep growing and changing even when you're older. I hope so. I hope she knows that life doesn't end at 30 or 40 or 50. That there are always new adventures to have, even if those adventures are just learning, to paint or reading books in other languages, or spending 3 months in a foreign city, especially those adventures. Maya leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad we did it, Paris. Me too. What's our next adventure? I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. It happened on a Tuesday in April, 5 years after our Paris trip. I was home alone, working in our studio when I got the call from Maya's office. She'd collapsed during a meeting. They'd called an ambulance. I needed to come to the hospital immediately. The subway ride was endless. My mind raced through every possibility, most of them terrible. Maya had always been healthy. She ran, she ate well, she got regular checkups. This couldn't be happening. I found her in the ER, conscious but pale, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily. Hey, she said weakly when she saw me. Don't hey, me. What happened? They're not sure yet. I just felt dizzy and then I was on the floor. She reached for my hand. I'm scared, Rachel. I know. I'm scared too, but we're going to figure this out. The doctors ran tests. So many tests. And finally, a diagnosis. A heart condition called cardiomyopathy. Treatable, they said, but serious. She'd need medication, lifestyle changes, regular monitoring. How long have I had this? Maya asked the cardiologist. Hard to say. It might have been developing for years. The good news is, we caught it before it caused major damage. After the doctor left, Maya and I sat in silence, holding hands, processing. Remember when we talked about growing old together? Maya finally said. About being young again when Zara left? Maya, I'm not being morbid. I'm just thinking about mortality. About how we take time for granted until suddenly we can't. You're going to be fine. The doctor said it's treatable. I know. But I'm not invincible. Neither of us are. She squeezed my hand. I want to make sure we don't waste the time we have, however much that is. Okay, then we won't. Maya's diagnosis changed our perspective on everything. She started medication that made her tired. She had to give up running, her favorite stress relief. She had appointments and checkups and a cardiologist who became part of our regular vocabulary. But she was alive. She was okay, and we were determined to make that enough. I want to make a list, Maya said one night, a few months after her diagnosis. We were lying in bed, Storm curled up at our feet, her breathing labored with age. A list of what? Everything I want to do. Everything we want to do, while we still can. So we made a list. Some items were big: visit Japan, see the northern lights, learn to make pottery. Some were small, perfect our croissant recipe, read all of Toni Morrison, plant a garden. This is ambitious, I said, looking at our completed list. We have time. Not unlimited time, but time. We started working through the list. We took a pottery class at the community center, both of us terrible at it, but laughing at our misshapen bowls. We started a garden on our fire escape, growing tomatoes and herbs that Storm liked to knock over. We read Morrison together, trading passages we loved, and on a cold night in November, Storm died peacefully in her sleep. 21 years old and having lived a life full of judgment and love, we buried her ashes in Prospect Park. In a spot where we'd walked her as a kitten, where we'd pushed Zara in her stroller, where we'd had 1,000 conversations over 3 decades of friendship and love. She was a good cat, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. The best cat, I agreed. End of an era. End of an era, I echoed. We stood there in the cold, holding each other, grieving the loss of this creature who'd been witness to so much of our life together. Should we get another cat? Maya asked. Eventually. When we're ready, will we ever be ready? Zara called on a Sunday morning in spring. She was 26 now, working as an environmental consultant and living in Seattle with Marcus, who'd somehow remained her boyfriend through college and beyond. Mom, Rachel, Mama Maya, she said when we both got on the video call. Marcus and I have some news. You're engaged, Maya guessed immediately. What? No, well, yes, actually. But that's not the news I was calling about. She held up her hand, showing a simple silver ring. He proposed last week. Congratulations, I said, genuinely happy. Marcus was a good guy, kind, funny, clearly devoted to our daughter. But that's not why I called, Zara continued. The other news is, I'm pregnant. Silence. Complete total silence as Maya and I processed this information. Pregnant. Maya finally said, 3 months. We weren't planning it, but we're happy about it. Really happy. And I know this is fast. And we're not married yet, but we're going to be grandmothers, I interrupted. Grandmothers, Maya repeated, and then she started crying. Happy crying, but still crying. Oh my God, are you upset? Zara asked, worried. No. No, honey, I'm happy. So happy. I'm just processing. After we hung up, promising to visit Seattle soon to celebrate properly, Maya and I sat in stunned silence. We're going to be grandmothers, she said again. Gammy and Nana, grandma and grandmother. Grammy and stop. We're not deciding this right now. I can't believe our baby is having a baby. I can't believe we're old enough to be grandmothers. We're Maya, that's not that old. Tell that to my heart, medication. We both laughed. And then Maya started crying again. And then I was crying too. And we held each other in our living room in the home we'd built. Overwhelmed by the continuation of the story we'd started so many years ago on a stormy night. We're going to spoil this child rotten, Maya said. Absolutely rotten, I agreed. And we're going to be the cool grandmas, the ones who teach them to question authority and care about the environment. And Bring them to art museums and read them French children's books. We're going to be amazing at this. We're going to be terrible at this. Both can be true. 9 months later, we met our granddaughter, Zara, had her in a hospital in Seattle with Marcus beside her and us on video call. Watching from across the country, she's here, Zara said, her voice exhausted and exhilarated. Meet Iris, Maya, Marcus. The camera panned to show us a tiny face, red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. Maya's a middle name, Zara explained. After you, Mama, because you taught me what it means to be brave enough to be yourself. Maya couldn't speak. She just cried, staring at the screen, at this new person who carried her name and her daughter's hope. We flew to Seattle the next week, held Iris for the first time, watched Zara become a mother, and saw ourselves reflected in Hertha, fear, and the love and the overwhelming responsibility. How did you do this? Zara asked me one night. She was trying to get Iris to sleep, walking endless circles around her living room while Marcus slept the sleep of the exhausted in the bedroom. One day at a time, one moment at a time, with lots of mistakes and even more love. I'm terrified I'm going to screw her up. You will. A little bit. It's inevitable. But you'll also give her more than you can imagine right now. Did you ever doubt yourself? When you were raising me? Every single day, but you seemed so confident. That was acting, baby. Your mama and I spent most of your childhood convinced we were doing everything wrong. I took Iris from her arms, giving Zara a break. But we loved you, and we showed up. And somehow you turned out pretty amazing. You two are my heroes, Zara said softly. You know that, right? We're just two people who loved each other and loved you and tried our best. That's what makes you heroes. When Maya and I flew back to New York a week later, we were different again. Grandmothers now. Another evolution, another chapter. I can't believe the story just keeps going, Maya said on the plane home. Did you think it would end? I don't know. I guess I thought we'd reach some final destination. Some place where we'd arrived and could just be. There is no destination. There's just the journey, and we get to take it together perfectly the way they always had. I wouldn't trade a single moment, Maya said. Not even the hard parts. Especially not the hard parts. They made us who we are. 10 years later, Maya and I celebrated our 40th anniversary. We threw a party in the same restaurant where we'd had our wedding reception. Now under new ownership but still serving the same excellent food. Zara came with Marcus and Iris, who was now a precocious 10-year-old who asked more questions than any child in history. Our friends came, the ones who'd survived with us, who'd watched our story unfold over 4 decades. Sophie gave a toast. Pulling out her phone with a grin, I'd like to read from the Rachel and Maya Our Idiots group chat one final time, she said. From 43 years ago when these two were in college, they just spent 6 hours studying together and didn't realize it was a date. From 35 years ago, I cannot watch them share another dessert from 30 years ago. The night before they finally got together, tomorrow, I'm locking them in a room until they admit they're in love. Everyone laughed, including us. But the truth is, Sophie continued, her voice softening, we weren't watching idiots. We were watching two people learn how to love each other. How to be brave enough to risk friendship for something more. And over the last 40 years, I've watched that love grow and deepen and evolve into something I can only describe as extraordinary. She raised her glass to Rachel and Maya, to 40 years of marriage, to the night she had to stay in your room, to every storm you've weathered together, to Rachel and Maya, everyone CHORUSED. Later, after most guests had left, Maya and I stood on the restaurant's back patio, watching the city lights. 40 years, Maya said. That's longer than most people get. We're not done yet. No, but I've been thinking about endings lately. She took my hand. My heart's not what it used to be. Neither of us are what we used to be. Maya, I'm not being morbid. I just want to say this while I can. Thank you for what? For opening your door that night? For letting me stay? For choosing me every day since then? Her eyes were shining. For building this life with me? For being my partner in every adventure? For growing with me instead of apart from me? Maya, you're my greatest adventure. You always have been. Even when I'm old and gray and can't remember where I put my reading glasses. Especially then. Though, for the record, you've been losing your reading glasses for 30 years. That's not an age thing, she laughed, and I pulled her close. Holding her against me the way I'd held her that first night, that 1000th night, every night in between. I love you, I whispered. I love every version of you I've ever known, and I can't wait to love all the versions I haven't met yet. You're getting sentimental. I'm celebrating 40 years with my wife. I'm allowed to be sentimental. Fair point. We stood there as the night deepened, as the party sounds faded, as the city hummed around us. Two women who'd built a life together, who'd weathered storms and celebrated victories, who'd raised a daughter and become grandmothers, who'd grown and changed and evolved while staying fundamentally, enduringly connected. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if it hadn't rained that night? Maya asked. Sometimes, but I think we would have found our way to each other eventually. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe it would have been messier. But we were always meant for this. You believe in fate? I believe in us, which amounts to the same thing. She kissed me, and it tasted like 40 years of kisses, familiar and new, comfortable and thrilling all at once. Come on, she said. Let's go home. Best idea you've had all day? We walked out into the New York night, hand in hand. Still writing our story with every step, because that's the thing about love stories, the best ones never really end. They just keep beginning over and over. With every choice to stay, every moment of choosing each other, every storm weathered and survived together. The night she had to stay in my room wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning. We finally had the courage to write, and we're still writing it. One beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect day at a time.